lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take all of this information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Cross-border is probably the top topic out there at all times, right? Like there's such a resurgence of fulfillment down in Mexico, nearshoring, everything like that. And, you know, where do you start though? I think that's the most important piece, especially if you want to start offering that as a service, or you're a manufacturer or distributor or supplier and you're looking at Mexico for a your next move in building out your supply chain. So we're here to talk about that today. I got a special guest for you guys. I got Mr. Luke Hoefs on the show. He's the Director of Innovation for Prosper Fulfillment. So Luke, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
No, man, I'm really looking forward to this. You know, I think that the Mexico portion of freight is really gaining a lot of attention, and you know, there's kind of a lot in the whims on what happens here in November with, you know, people's candidates proposed legislation about tariffs and everything else about what's going on. And then especially over these last 3 years, you know, it getting stuff imported or out of China and stuff like that has really kind of been a challenge at times. So it seems like the natural progression has been to go down into Mexico to kind of build up a fulfillment center and stuff like that. So like before we get into any of that though, man, how'd you get your start in freight, Luke?
All right. So I, right out of college, got my feet wet at a large brokerage, 3 letters, TQL, absolutely loved it. Went through their sales, LEAT program, and found myself transferring into distribution sales. I did an RDP there. So learned how to sell at TQL, loved the culture. And then I rotated around a distributor, doing every single job. It was an RDP program where they put you in accounting, operations, sales, marketing, and ended up moving down to Orlando, where I got to sell and grow a book of business. And I realized that at that time, all this product is moving around me. I always had my freight broker hat on. And when I was selling at the distributor, I grew a book there, ran into my first problem where I get orders from my customers. My operations guy would say, I can't get this stuff out till next week. So I put my freight broker hat on, and we started signing up courier companies and transportation companies to handle that surge in new business I was bringing on. And I like to say I just got sucked in from there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, solved the problem in the distribution space. That turned into running a courier service for a little bit. All I really did at the courier service was sign them up with brokers. Then their phones were ringing off the hook. I said, man, I kind of miss being a broker. That's when I moved into the agency role and did that for a while. Always worked with forward-thinking, tech-based brokerages. I like solving problems through technology. You know, in the fast-paced environment we move, and just recently, through some connections, saw the next wave in the supply chain, and realized that it's nearshoring, whatever you want to call it, nearshoring, cross-border fulfillment. It's a power play for a lot of big companies. And what we do is we help the mid-sized companies get there quicker. So that's ultimately, what got me into the fulfillment side. So I've had experience, with courier services, LTL, parcel, this is the last piece of the puzzle for me. So I find it, very interesting, and my days are great. So
Yeah. No, I think that having an understanding of more than just one mode of transportation, I think that comes in time, in experience, and everything else. I wouldn't advise anybody just like jump in and be like, all right, I'm going to do LTL fulfillment, full truckload, air for like I am so against all of that.
one of
I'm
my
more
many
about like
mistakes.
yeah, dude, right? I'm all about like choosing your niche and then kind of building out from there. But I think like learning and getting ahead of some of these trends is pretty crucial. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? Like I founded a couple of companies here, and I always try and look out 24 months in advance, right? Like that's where my mind is constantly sitting for the most part. And the whole push in Mexico and everything has been all over the news. And I'm thinking here, like, how many companies out there right now are like, I'm sick and tired of all the fees associated with importing freight through, LA Long Beach, and then wait time and everything else of ordering it from, the Southeast Asia region of the world, and then having it take 8 weeks to get over here, and then another week to get in from the port. Hypothetical example, you guys, but they're like, what would it look like to build that in Mexico? What would it look like for me to move, some of my production down there? Or, maybe I'm looking at a supplier down there, and maybe I need to find something close to the border. Like say it's manufactured down in Mexico City, and I want to get a fulfillment center closer to the border itself, so I can, increase my customer response time and everything from there. So how does that look, Luke? Like, how do I contact you? And I got a widget that I'm getting manufactured out there that I need some, long-term storage potentially down there. How do I build a fulfillment network with somebody like you?
Absolutely. So yeah, we would, get started with establishing the relationship with your manufacturer, understand how you're currently doing it. And, our statement is, however you're currently doing it, we'll reduce your operational costs by 20 to 30%. Now, location does have a lot to do with it. And when you're bringing stuff over from China, all from a customer's perspective, you have to change is, instead of going from port to door, getting it into the United States, the first thing you would change is getting it port to port. So you bring your products in. We'll keep the manufacturing in China right now. I'll run you through this play, and then we can talk about bringing the actual manufacturing to Mexico, what that looks like. This is probably the easiest transition to build your footprint in Mexico, step one. Yeah. So you bring the products in. If you're heavy in D2C sales, you can take advantage of de minimis duty programs such as Section 321. I won't get into that too much, but just know that we have the capabilities to, process D2C orders under $800 duty free. And it's a big game changer for a lot of brands paying high duties and tariffs. So
yeah, let's talk about that though, man, because that's something that it isn't necessarily talked about a lot with, tariffs and everything else that's out there. So like, what is it? Have you guys looked into this? Like, what does it actually cost most manufacturers to import in its current juncture?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's HTS codes. You talk about just databases and siloed out databases. I'd say HTS codes and reporting to your freight forwarder is probably up there in some of the most confusing, misled, misinformation out there on the internet. There's no one database you can go to calculate your savings. It's each country holds its own, rule of taxes and duties and how they charge for that. So in general, if you're paying over 10, 15, 20%, and the list just keeps getting higher and higher as more laws are imposed. Mm-hmm. So if it's a pain point for you, it stings immediately as you enter the United States. And as soon as it clears that port, or right before it clears that port, you're paying a lot of money to get that freight cleared into the United States. So what we do is,
Yeah, I think that there's.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think like, because we move a lot of containers, importing a lot of containers. And, we're kind of seeing that there's a lot of fees that can kind of pop up unannounced, we'll call them. And, and it's stuff like that I think that as you're going out there and really assessing what is your next logical move, right? Like, you're like, hey, we can't grow fast enough here in the United States. So we're looking to start buying product in Southeast Asia. We're assessing what the import status looks like. We're really looking to expand our operations, and I think like having a clear understanding of what it costs to actually import a container from China into the United States, as opposed to what it would cost to manufacture in Mexico and then just ship it up here into the United States, and seeing that cost breakdown. I would love to actually see that, and like a side-by-side comparison. What is that average? And then I want to also account response time too, right? Like, because obviously you can't, unless you want to air freight something from China, you're looking at 6, 8, 12 weeks, whatever that looks like, from manufacturing to release to getting here to the United States, as opposed to what would it be to have it manufactured down in Mexico? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? Is it half the amount of time? Because it's like, as from my perspective, I would look at it as it might be a little bit higher on the upfront cost, but if it improves my fulfillment and my response times to my customers, then my sales team can get out there and sell more, right? Because there's not a 12-week gap between order to arrival to our distribution network. It might be 3 weeks, and then we can get it across and into our distribution network, and then we can sell at a higher pace. That's just kind of where my mind goes with a lot of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of two ways you can look at it. You can have the big picture train of thought. It's like, all right, I'm going to bring my entire supply chain and actually manufacture in Mexico, or I'm going to enhance my relationships with my suppliers in China and run cross-border fulfillment and take advantage of all the duties and tariff programs that help eliminate those on a D2C level for now. So it's basically a step. The ultimate power play for all the enterprise customers, it's a land grab in Tijuana right now, but that takes time. It's getting more expensive as well. So the ultimate, way to run your D2C chain, absolutely. It just, from a financial standpoint and playing it forward, it makes sense for everybody to have a manufacturing facility in Mexico. But years 1 through 4, how do you take advantage of it while having that big picture train of thought? You use a fulfillment partner that knows how to do cross-border fulfillment and file the paperwork properly and enhance the customer journey. So
how does that look though, man? Like, so say I end up, I manufacture widgets, whatever that looks like, and I choose you to handle all of my distribution for me down in Mexico. What does that look like from an import side of things? Are you guys the freight forwarder as well? Do you guys work with the freight forwarder? What does that process look like? Why am I seeing more names besides Prosper Fulfillment coming across to let me know about my order status?
Right. So right now, our focus is fulfillment. I like to say I've learned that mistake of going a mile wide and an inch deep. So we're a mile deep and an inch wide and just fulfillment. We got awesome import and export partners that we work with. If we come across a company that has a healthy relationship with their freight forwarder, all they have to do is change it from port to door to port, and then we can catch that data and bring it in. So how you move with your freight forwarder doesn't change much. How you file for the customs clearance, that changes a little, and our onboarding team takes care of that. So. And then once you bring the product in, we operate very similarly to a good 3PL domestically in the United States. We hit all the SLAs, and you might be wondering, for D2C business, how are you getting it to New York in 2 to 3 to 4 days?
Yeah.
So to make it very clear and short, we consolidate truckload. We run truckloads consolidated across the border. We inject into regional couriers
Yep.
We have relationships with a plethora of courier services through a pretty cool dynamic way of dispatching our shipments. But we cross the border, it hits San Diego, the package just never stops moving.
Yeah.
It's called zone skipping in the parcel world. So 1,500 of the orders going to New York, it's consolidated on a truckload, and it's teamed, expedited all the way.
Yeah. So how does that look, man? Are you guys like, say I only have I don't even know what to quantify it as from an order volume perspective, but like, how do I just like rent out a bay of pallet spaces where it's like, hey, I have, 10 pallets a week worth of volume that would ship through that? Is that how it's broken down? Or are, like I'm just looking from like kind of like a pricing perspective. You don't have to tell me like what the rate is or anything like that, but I'm just wondering like, hey man, I'm a small company. I only need 10 pallet spaces for a month, or is it broken down by the SKU? What does that look like?
Yeah. So let's talk about, the growth of an e-commerce brand and, what the norm is right now.
Mm-hmm. So
I must say, working with e-commerce brands, very fun. Very fun. Yeah. Eccentric founding. Anyway, when they're doing up to 500 orders a day, they're more than likely doing it in-house. Mm-hmm. It could have started in their garage. Then they started renting a public storage unit. And the play there, if they want to grow, and the 3PLs domestically have done a great job at educating the e-commerce brands. It's make this switch. Normally, if they're doing 500 orders a day and they make the switch to a 3PL domestically in the States, they're paying about 5% more. Mm-hmm. And it's that's been the norm for the last 5-6 years. But this cross-border play, when you make that switch, yes, onboarding, there's a lot of paperwork and processes we have to follow to a T. We're very good at that. Instead of a 5% uptick, it's a 25 to 30% reduction in cost. Mm-hmm. So okay. I'd say think about anything 200-300 orders a day. It'll make sense financially, but anything below, get better at selling.
Yeah. No. I mean, that makes sense, right? Because, again, back down to the whole, I try and be as honest as I possibly can on my show about like where my business is and where things are. And, it's all a calculated risk, like you look at sometimes where, hey, I want to get into a bigger space because I truly feel like these results are coming and I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But the reality is you might swing and miss in those instances. So it's, I'm starting to kind of reassess my opinion on a lot of that, where I'd almost rather be busting at the seams before I would expand out and change my operations, as opposed to, no, let's just get into it right now and move everything down there. But again, everybody processes risk differently. And I've just kind of been down this route now for, 4 years. And I'm just learning on how to make the best chess move long time in my business. And like, how do we allocate our capital? How do we, like, what is the best ROI for our efforts? And sales is everything, right? Like you brought up a good point there, Luke. You got to sell more. My big concern for a lot of people inside of transportation is their entire revenue is tied up with one or two major accounts, and they're not selling, they're not expanding, they don't know where to look in the event that they have a customer or a prospect that comes to them. And you guys, this is why I bring a guy like Luke on this show, because if you're a broker or a trucking company or an LTL provider and you don't know where to turn, if your customer comes to you and says, hey, we're thinking about shifting our operations down to Mexico, do you know of anybody? This is why we need to have conversations like this, because it's not about, I understand the need for a lot of people that they need revenue, but you need to know who to talk to in the event that your customer comes to you, because that could be the deciding factor if you're going to remain their provider or if the person who comes to them with that solution is going to take everything over. Because what I like to say, when I get in the door with the customer, I get in on my core competency. But if my customers come to me with another request, you better bet your ass I'm going to find that solution for them, because I'm looking to move up their totem pole of importance. I'm looking to eventually sink my claws in and become their number one provider for everything. It's just a matter of time. I want to talk to guys like Luke. I want to know who I could talk to in Mexico from a fulfillment standpoint, who actually owns the building that they would be going in, where if any of my customers or somebody else might know, you need, networking's everything in these situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my favorite parts of doing this is when we have a prospect on the phone and, their ICP meets the criteria, and we deliver the pitch, and then they go, why isn't everybody doing this? It's my favorite thing, because at the end of the day, it just makes sense to do for the right customer. And it's a disruptor in this industry, right? So, that takes time, and it takes the right forward thinking group. So we're not working with 100-year-old companies that have, I like to say, the buildings with the fluorescent lights, in the carpet still. We work with companies that are doing anywhere from 10 to 200 million with a high revenue per employee number, that maybe they're fulfilling in-house, maybe they're utilizing a 3PL domestically, but they see the shift in the supply chain and they want to take advantage of it. We're here for that. We're here to grow, because fulfillment is growing in multiple ways. Yeah, there's this giant growth in e-commerce, but over the last 2, 3, 4 years, the marketplaces have started catching up. Everybody, Amazon's been the biggest logistics company forever. Yeah. Then Walmart grabbed a hold of that. Now TikTok Shop is blowing up.
Yeah,
so,
dude.
Yeah,
that's true, man. That's wild. Sonny brings up a good question here. This is actually where I was going to. Sonny watches the show so much, he knew where my question was about to transition to, because I wasn't. He asked to know, do you guys do temp controlled product? Because that was going to be my next question. Is are you guys food grade certified? Are you guys just consumer goods? Like what does that look like?
Right now, it's consumer goods, mostly apparel, footwear, and that's what we're going in a mile deep on. We love to have the conversations to talk through temp controlled and how that would work. There's a lot of it's just a lot of extra paperwork. You end up having to know what to do to clear things with the FDA from an import export standpoint.
Yeah, it's I will say this. My wife is from Sonora, originally born and raised. My in-laws live in Sonora, and you can't beat the Sonoran beef, man. I'm telling you, dude, that's next level good down there. So I will say that. And I know, because my man Sonny specializes in protein out there for his temp controlled proteins and stuff like that. But
yeah, Sonny, we'd love to talk. We'd love to talk and figure out how we can help. So please reach out.
Yeah. It's, dude, I think that, but I like what you guys are doing though, in that niche style thing where, you brought up, apparel, shoes, footwear, stuff like that is kind of staying inside of that specialty, because, again, I think that aligns perfectly with your guys' core customer base and who you guys are really going after. Is you guys, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that you guys are going after that up and coming brand. You're looking for that brand that's out there that is, maybe they just moved out of their first apartment and they're getting into their first building, and then they're starting to assess what is our next thing if we're going to get manufacturing, because manufacturing costs, all of that stuff that's a very real thing. I think a lot of companies want to have that made in America label on it, but as you're building your business up, you might not be able to afford to do it that way. And, you got to look outside of there.
Don't get me wrong. We service enterprise level customers.
Yeah.
And, we have that part of our business, but from the interesting and exciting aspect of being able to work with brands that have figured out their brand, their ICP, and have created a market and loyal customers that need a little help on the fulfillment side to help them do what they do best. There's nothing better than that. It's exciting. It's very cool.
And that's like, I've been very fortunate to work with a couple of customers that got really big after we got in the door with them. And I'm not going to say it had anything to do with us brokering their freight, but, seeing where they went from 2 facilities to 15 facilities nationwide. And they went from like, we were doing like 200 shipments a month to like 1,500 shipments a month with them. Like, that's so exciting to see these brands kind of grow out over time. And then knowing like, you know, you were kind of a big part of it in bringing their brand out there to, you know, nationwide. And, you know, when even still to this day, like I pointed out to my wife almost every single time that we, see their product on the shelves and there's another new flavor of their stuff. I'm like, damn, and then they have like cans now, and it used to just be in bottles. And I'm like, and then they got energy drinks and all this stuff. And I'm like, babe, we used to move it when there was just one sparkling flavor. And now here they are, and they got it. I don't know. I'm just a freight junkie at heart, man. I just love this shit so
likewise,
much.
my friend.
I love seeing that stuff, man. I really do.
Yeah, it's fun. I dubbed the term supply chain surfer because it's just it's fun. And yeah, I will say, growing with brands, how we tend to add value is forecasting and being at the forefront of pushing the right data their way and truly forecasting, because you can forecast for truckload freight, and you know everybody has their systems out there, but for fulfillment, it's not only, you know, seasonal, it's the amount of employees, the amount of storage and bins. It gets very complex very quick. So we push the technology and clean data through our system to put our customers in the best position possible to make the best decisions.
And I think like that, you know, I'm a firm believer that success leaves clues out there. And for you guys to have those that enterprise level, and I'm not saying you guys are sharing data, but you know, that experience of working with an enterprise level customer and, you know, forecasting with that style of information, to be able to bring that down to a brand that might be looking to expand out there. And it's like, hey, this is what these, you know, a customer of ours that does, this is how they operate, this is how they forecast. And then having that experience, I mean, dude, that's crucial, right? Like I'm fortunate to be involved in in an entrepreneur group where I kind of can cheat a little bit in business because I'm learning from guys who have built massive companies, and they're helping me expedite my success because of that. Like, it's probably saving me 5-10 years of growing pains that I'm getting it condensed down, because they're like, no, do this, 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 and this. When I hit this level of revenue, this is what we changed and pivoted to. When I hit that level, this is what we did. This is how we expanded hiring. This is how we expanded all of that stuff. So to me, that information is valuable. And then working with somebody who's kind of seen that play out from multiple angles, I mean, dude, that's huge, man.
Yeah. And living in 2024, when you not only can play it out, you can visualize it. It's incredible. It's very powerful. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far. We're just getting started. And we're filling up a 280,000 square foot, our second 280,000 square foot facility quickly. So yeah.
Are you guys just in Tijuana then, or do you guys have another facility out there as well?
So just in Tijuana right now.
Okay.
Mile deep and an inch wide in Tijuana.
No, absolutely, man. No, that's great. And I think that's perfect, Luke. Well, Luke, I appreciate you joining me, man. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more?
Hit me up on LinkedIn, Luke Hoefs, or email me, luke@prosperfulfillment.com. And yeah, that should do it.
Perfect. Sounds great, man. And for some reason, if you guys can't find Luke out there, just hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with Luke to learn more about what they got going on out there. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back tomorrow. We got another guest. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking.